I've seen some stuff even within the last 24 hours that is not only very disturbing, it's kind of like when, let's say, for instance, there's your mother, right? Your great great grandmother as a soul, and she's been trying to get your attention to handle something that you, as being Ram, which is Sunday, the soul, the synthesis, etc., that you need to handle. That you have to bring light to the darkness. You have to basically deal with this karma. Okay, and what happens though is if you spend the first part of your life completely oblivious to this is what has been going on. Some have definitely had some contacts when they were younger, and some have maintained that connection since the beginning, and they just have found themselves led right into this path. But most have been pretty much cut off from the spiritual aspects of what their life exists with, as far as dealing with ancestors and souls and all that. And they've been turned on to this world and all of that it presents, right? So what this is akin to is when someone wants to hide something, they put it in the darkness. Okay. And so you can imagine that the symbolism around, let's say, hiding things or ignorance is and has been darkness or the underground. And if you can reflect for a moment and ask yourself about the ancient temples and all the ancient things, the secrets, the knowledge, relics, where would you probably find a lot of that stuff these days? If it's not in a museum or something, it would probably still be underground. And so it seems to be very easy, just like when you would put somebody in a grave and you put dirt on them, to basically, says you put them 6 feet down there rather than a couple feet so we can get them out every now and then. Because if you look at most cultures, they actually go and get the bones of the dead, of their dead uncles and aunties and whatever, and then they clean them off, especially the leader, and then they put them back in. And that is generally a day of remembrance for them because they know that this being is still alive and this is just all a part of the process of connection, and they're very much in tune with what that world is saying, that spirit world, and that gives you a certain level of power, almost to be all powerful in many cases, because you could see things from both sides. You could have an eye in the spiritual world, and then you can have an eye in the physical world. Right now we have a very strong eye in the physical world, and either the other eye is almost sleep or completely blind. And this other eye is the eye that peers into the spiritual world. So now when we look at the last 400 years, and I'll just take it from that level because there's a lot of fictitious history, but from the last 400 years, all of our ancestors have experienced all of their knowledge and their wisdom and what they've learned with their DNA. They've experienced that being buried. Okay. In fact, most of the stuff is still buried, even physically, mentally, and spiritually. And then also, what is done after it's buried is something is put on top of it that generally strikes fear in everyone. And this is why you have churches basically on the top of sacred burial grounds, because churches actually function as symbols of fear. I mean, as a child, I was like, oh, no, no, no. I don't want to go in there. It's so boring. I have a fear of boredom. Okay. And not since Sister Love and they're pinching and all that shit. So I'm like, nah, I don't want to go there. Right. So, but even deeper than that, there is always generally something that is even looks like a demon or something put on top of it in a story like, oh, this is the haunted house of blah, 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 blah. Right. Or if there's ghosts moving around, don't go over there, you'll be cursed, blah 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 blah. Okay. And so now that we're the wool has been pulled off of our eyes and the veil has been lifted, and the ancestors have invited us in to once again join the celebration, lots of stuff, but in very clear, concise power packs have been coming through. Just like when I got off the line yesterday, la di da, I go sit down and I start eating my oatmeal, and life is there, and we're just eating this oatmeal. And then all of a sudden, this voice comes in and said, Seven, what does hollow mean? And I'm like, you mean like HALLOW? And then they said, yeah, that one. And I said, the interesting thing is, because I do know the scripture, "Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name." That's our biggest reference for us Westerners. I can't actually say I know what specifically hollow means, so I'm going to go and look it up. Now, I did source a little bit about this in the chat for those who've heard this already, but it's important that it does get on the recording and run into the synchronicity, because it revealed a lot more things. And that's just one, that this word hollow means set apart. It means actually holy. It means to set apart something for the holy, to pay attention or to observe. Okay, if it could be a term, to the holy fire. What is the action that still allows something to be sacred? And when that action is no longer observed, it would be as if the sun or young ram or the soul in you no longer was able to shine into those depths and bring light to it, or bring light to this ancient wisdom and these treasures, and thus they became buried. So we see an act in the reality that is 100% verified of this technique of not only shrouding the ancient mysteries and putting them under the ground and hiding them, and then smacking some kind of fearsome, crazy looking totem on top of them that generally is a symbolic code also for something, for those who still need to expunge this knowledge and information. But for others who don't know anything about it, it looks like a demon or a devil, and that's the end of it. And thus, our lineage is then thrown in the trash can because we can't remember our mothers and our fathers. Literally, not only can we not remember, I mean, we actually literally don't really observe them, our great grandmothers and great fathers, but we also can't remember in every tense who they really are. Like we say, well, where were my people? Where was my great great grandmother and all of this? And then it's like there's no knowledge of that. But what there, you can have a seat, brother, and you can also have a seat here if you wish. Our brother Life just walked in. So what I'm showing here is that with our ancestors, when, let's say, any conquistador, any conqueror comes into a country, the first thing they're going to dispose of is your language and your main, actually first, before they get your language, because that's going to take some time. They still need you to talk and communicate. You can't teach a person a language overnight. First thing they're going to do is destroy your mother, your ancient father. They're going to take your lineage, your history, your DNA, and they're going to bury that some way, somehow. If they do that psychologically, they will beat you into some kind of submission and have two generations completely forgetting who you really were, how much power, the lineage, the nobility, etc. They will bury it. So it's only the sun that will bring light to those things. It's only the sun that can penetrate, just like they even say I was in a cave. A cave is like a super level, another level of darkness. If you think you've seen darkness, you go into a cave and the darkness looks like it's actually coming into your eyes. Okay, that's the darkness. But when we were shining our flashlights, we saw this little green plant down there, just a little green sprout growing in like a little water stream down there. And I was like, what? How's this plant growing? And the guy answered it synonymously when I remembered it from science class, and that was that the sun has such a deep penetration that it will penetrate into a far infrared, and it will keep going and penetrating deeper into the earth, giving still light, although a version that is different than the one we're looking at, light to all those things down there. So now, if we can not just hypothesize, but realize these prophecies saying that we're going into another sun, what they call the sixth sun, this means that the composition of the sun has changed and is continuously changing, more than likely to keep penetrating deeper into the depths of what has been forgotten to bring light to it. And then there are going to be some who choose to, they're going to be able to actually expunge that light from within themselves, in the depths of themselves, and they're going to come forth, and it's going to seem like light is coming from their mouth, their nose, their ears, their eyes, their wisdom, because their mouth, ears, eyes, those, everything else, and it's going to seem like they're just spraying out light or life over the lands. Okay, and this is all going to happen and is happening right now, because once again, when we look into the deep knowledge, we have a simple mystery that has been cracked here. So when I had asked that question, what is hallowed, and we got that definition, and it meant set apart and holy, obviously the mind immediately took me to Halloween. Okay. And then once I thought of even a Halloween, I said, this is going to be funny because we're going to learn a deep secret here, because we have the exact template of what they always do right here. Something that is shrouded in darkness, something that seems to have something to do with souls and all of this. So let's see what this really, really is. So we know that Halloween is called the Day of the Dead. And just meaning that Halloween is connected to the Day of the Dead, because if you actually Google the Day of the Dead and you go to Wikipedia, you'll find the Day of the Dead starts on October 31st and it ends on November 2nd. Okay, so it's virtually 3 days in this tense. So before I even delve into that, I have to let you also understand, because we talked about Saturn, and Saturn is a deep representative of darkness because he's an enforcer of karma. So he could actually put you into the darkness, put you behind bars, put you underground. Okay, so when the enforcer comes, this is the things that can actually happen. And so if we look deep into that knowledge, what we'll find is we'll find that first of all, there's a lot of symbolism that says that when you get plunged into the darkness, this is what we're calling today jail. What a cave really is, and you can't come out of the cave, that's kind of like what we know today as jail. Okay. And there's something interesting about jail, though, which is you always get visitation. Like there's still, unless you, only a few criminals no longer have access to complete or some type of visitation or communication rights. Okay. I want you to think about this, because what I was able to so profusely reveal to myself yesterday is that there is really a galactic or cosmic constitution. There is still lawyers, even the court appointed ones, judges, and all this on a higher level. And the only reason why something hasn't stepped in on our behalf is because we're still classifying ourselves as not even actually being true true members of the tribe. And of course, we're doing that because we've been naturalized with a custom that is not our custom. So when you naturalize somebody, that's basically saying you're going to make it natural for them to believe that this is their custom. So in the Western world, Hollywood is their custom, and people have been naturalized. In all the countries, this has gone on, and people have detached themselves from their original custom. So thus, the galactic scenario is generally having a hard time coming in and interceding on their behalf. Now it's happening, but it's not happening nowhere near to the magnitude of what it can happen, because all they have to do is just bring your stuff. I mean, all they have to do is bring your ancient mothers and ancient fathers' belongings to you, and then you would know. And what those belongings are is that activation of your DNA and your awareness and your memory. So if it was judged that give him his stuff or give her her stuff because she's reached the first stage of nobility again, she's out of the underworld, he's out of the underworld and playing around with calling himself and herself a color. And that's why I'm saying there'll always be two losers in any competition. The one who wins and the one who thinks he wins, and the ones who thinks they think they lost. Because both of them are family members in tribes. And that's what happens when you get into arguments with people that are close to you and your family. You always lose something. Then it's like, oh, everybody's going out this weekend. Oh, but is the deal going to be there? Because I told y'all, and it's like literally the line between the family. It's like, oh, anybody who's dealing with uncle blah 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 can no longer deal. And then always one of the uncles ends up getting rich, so it's like people start gravitating towards the rich uncle, and we have a family structure again. So if you want to ask, because a lot of people want to immediately say, yes, those conquistadors, those ones that routed our lands and blah blah. No. There was something that actually happened first, because all of this takes place in our minds, and it's a real thing. We're acting it out every day. So whatever happened with us and our family members and some of the disagreements that began to happen in the separation finally manifested itself as an enforcer on the land, routing all of us and despoiling all of the things that we have been given as gifts, including the animals too. You see what I mean? And so even the act of giving, sidebar here, even the act of giving a child a stuffed animal and giving them teddy bears and all that is an act that our parents actually gave us the animals like little toys for us. Like, oh, here's a bear, here's a lion, look at it, it's cute, isn't it? And then because of our stature, this bear and lion never thought about attacking us. It was always like, you know what I mean? And that's why you always still see the gods today rolling with, when they give them in the motifs, rolling with some kind of fierce animal like a tiger. And she's on top of the tiger. And it's like, wow, and it's just because those were like the teddy bears and the gifts that were given. But of course, all that's been buried. So when we look at this and we say, well, is there any truth to what I'm saying right now? Let us examine very briefly Halloween. Now, first of all, here in the Day of the Dead reference in Wikipedia in the second paragraph, it'll say the holiday, sometimes called basically an Anglophone, the Dia de los Muertos, which is the Day of the Dead, etc. It is particularly celebrated in Mexico, which is basically the Aztec or the Atlan Empire. So basically, if they ever reference Mexico or the Mexican, that is basically the consolidation of Atlan or the Atlantean Empire as it stands, right? So in the Atlantean colony, they are observing a day that right away it tells you prior to Spanish colonization in the 16th century, the celebration took place at the beginning of summer. So it's just they're not lying anymore. They're just telling you directly. Before this was celebrated on the October 31st, this was actually celebrated on the first day of summer, which was actually 2 days ago, right? That's the summer solstice. Okay, so it's interesting again the synchronicities because it all dials in at this specific moment right on time. But what is this observance about? Well, it just so happens that still, no matter how far you're plunged into darkness, you have a right for communication. Also, if you guys hear any choppiness and breaking up over here, because y'all know about this area, I put a new router in, but just do this like, yo, because we don't want it to happen because we have a whole clip on the last Sunday that is unsalvageable. I was looking at the other day and I was like, but anyway, let's make sure that we stay on point with just the sound and the connection. So I'm glad it is working though. So this Day of the Dead, I had to sidebar here, and then let me just clear myself up here and bring myself into center. So this is the day of observance on November the 1st. And as I said, this is visitation. It's your right. Okay. Meaning that you have a right to actually be in communication with your ancestors during a certain period. It's almost like a gate opens, the doors open. It's like, okay, you could go and they can come. And during that time, you can connect. So if you look at what summer solstices are going into summers, what it actually says is this was also known as that All Saints Day, which really translates as, and let me show you what it says here. They call it the All Hallow Tide, right? These traditions connect with the holiday, including building private altars called ofrendas, okay? Honoring the deceased using calaveras and Aztec marigolds and the favorite foods and beverages of the departed and visiting graves and these gifts. Because if you've ever been and observed jail and prison, every time the family comes, they always bring the person in jail all the things that they like. But they can't leave jail. But they can get the family, oh, grandma, oh man, I miss these. So everything is backwards. So let's flip it around. Instead of your ancestors and everybody that's already beyond being in jail, it's actually you that's still in the darkness, disconnected from them. Do you understand? So they could come and bring you all of the things that you used to like as encouragement to, man, just do your time and then get out of there. You see what I mean? Don't keep getting into trouble. Don't keep adding more to your sentence. So when this observation happens, notice this is a happy time on earth, summertime, right? Summertime, right? So summertime is a happy time. So it's literally connecting you right away and telling you this Day of the Dead, which is supposed to be like a dark day for everybody, is anybody that's living on earth is one of the happiest days for them because what? They're going to be able to link with their ancestors if they knew about this. Okay, if this was even not so dark in their mind that they could no longer recall what these days are for. So, of course, when you look into the rest of the motifs and the symbolism surrounded by this day, you figure out, sure enough, that there is a portal that is open that seems to connect those who have passed on with those who are living. And during this time, there's celebrations. Altars are built. Altars are, of course, this dial-in resonance thing that basically, but personal ones that seem specific. So specific altars, meaning these are your direct ancestors. There's a direct connection, and then you're able to receive from. Now, look, they shortened this to a 2-day period, I guess, because it was the 31st to the November 2nd. But it used to be from what is that, June 21st, I guess, right? All the way to November 2nd. So that's June, July, August, September. Dang, that was like at least 4 months of vegetation that you just shortened to 2 days. But horrible math. And we're accepting this. So what I'm also saying is that it seems like every seed also gets buried. Did we not notice that? Right? So every seed gets buried. So this is part of the process then. Like I could throw a party in this joint right now. You know how sometimes, I've observed even where guys are in jail and they got all the shit. They got cell phones, TVs, and I'm like, man, it's not even like y'all locked up. So let's imagine the metaphysical aspect of this. When they're where I'm about to go home in a week. You ever seen that cat? And then not to mention, as I've always said, because I was unfortunately put in one of those situations or put myself into one of those situations, when you finally walk out those doors and walk out of those bars, man, if they could ever bottle that, if they could ever bottle that feeling that you have when you've been limited and imprisoned, and then that day that you're free, oh man, there wouldn't be any limit to buyers of this. Okay, so what I'm saying, it is an overwhelming feeling. It's like fasting. You've just fasted on life for a year and a half, and now you're back in the feast. But what I'm saying spiritually is happening right now is we're about to go into the next stage of our spiritual connection. And it's going to be akin to us coming out of the dark cave with the bars on it because of the enforcements of Saturn and the time that is necessary to generate these seeds. Serious stuff, not playing with you, not crying for you, being very cold with you as a child in order for you to get to the point where you can generate your own heat, you can generate your own light. And not all go through the process and actually make it. If they don't make it, they get grind down again. And then it starts the process all over again. And it eventually makes it. But now we're at such a high stage or balance stage, I'll say it that way. We are now coming into the awareness that everything that is supposed to be our knowledge has been shrouded into darkness. And it makes sense. Why? Because to let you know about your family and let you know about your power and let you know about everything that belongs to you would set you in a whole different state of mind than what the world just had going on for the last 400 years with your parents and grandparents, as far as how much they've been consigned to the mines. You work with the sweat of your brow all the way to your death. You work. You see what I mean? And this is how these seeds were generated that we're calling our ancestors, that they built this on the sweat of their back. And this is like, now we're looking at Earth now. It's been put together now. Like we're actually sitting in the finished product pretty much. Right. But now that same test must come to us in our own magnitude. So literally what's happening is all of our true possessions, those are our gems and our chakras and all that, have been stolen or removed or shrouded. And so now we find that the day has truly dawned to where it's dawning on us. These days are in observance. They're hallowed. They're holy, happy stuff set aside for us to connect with our ancestors who, through other times, if we're on the other side of the bars, would normally not be able to connect with us. But through a constitutional cosmic right, if you're not actually designating yourself as not part of the tribe and not part of, again, the human family, the animal family, the cosmic family, because you're designating yourself in a culture that is not only not dead, but incorrect. So if you're adapting to these other spiritual systems, all their spiritual systems are dead. The only spiritual system you need is your mother and father. You see what I mean? And it's not like saying, oh, mom and dad. I'm talking about what's behind their eyes, the divine feminine, the divine masculine. That is the only real spiritual system because you're pinging directly into your memory base. You're pinging directly into your DNA and what is perfect for you. Because in your uniqueness, that's another thing. How is somebody else going to have a key that fits your lock? You see what I mean? Like if somebody's giving out keys and secrets, a lot of this stuff at times, no matter how deep it is, still seems like surface knowledge until somebody says something that is directly related to you. And like, remember, 50 years ago when you were down in, I don't know, ancient Lanka and you sat in that cave and you had that tingly feeling up your spine. That was me. That's specific to you. Not everybody was in Lanka. Not everybody was sitting in that cave, and not everybody had that tingly feeling up the spine. But they have their own version, their own key. And the way that they are coerced to remember is those things are brought to them while they're still in here. It's like what you would do with your family member if you saw them in jail. Look, man, remember, man, just cheer up, man. Remember, I remember those days. And it's like, man, trust me, man, if you just do what you need to do in here. So this is what is actually happening. That's what I'm just presenting to you today. And again, I keep finding evidence that every time I look into something that's supposed to be dark, demonic, and ghoulish, like Halloween has turned into, now look at how it's flipping and it's getting crazy. Like last night we saw this video of, some song called Mulatto by that called Pretty Ricky, right? Which is some lady that's the next clone of Nicki Minaj. The symbolism being brought out is how the fruits are, and it's just direct. I mean, nothing is hidden, but there's still a legality with them being able to take fruits and cut them like sexual parts and have sex with these fruits or poke these fruits and all that kind of stuff. They figured out now, Hollywood, that there's still that loophole. They can't show your children naked women and men having sex directly on public stations yet, but they can take a cartoon figure or go into the cartoon mode and take a fruit and then take the fruit and make it look like a sexual component and then abuse the fruit and poke the fruit and all this kind of stuff. And this is now the new thing. Okay. So somebody a long time ago, let's say 20 years ago, even 30s more, would have thought this would have been over already. Would have thought the moment they put a bra on the box, because I always make that reference. Remember, in the 1930s, it was illegal to put a picture of a woman in a bra on a box and put it on a shelf so kids could see it. You see what I mean? It had to be, and so it just said bra. You could not put pictures. And then slowly but surely, now she got one breast out and the other one with the so this is the thing. But many people would have thought like it's never going to get to the point. Now look, they put it on the box, but she'll never wear it on TV. It'll never be like on TV. This is the limit. Next thing you know, she's walking on TV with it. And then this almost seems like something that nobody's able to control as our seeds are continuously being influenced by rottenness. Because this is what would pretty much be happening. It's like the seed would be planted, but somebody would dump trash juice on it. And the seed would, if it germinated at all, it would germinate already bearing worms and already pretty much out of balance. This is what's happening. Unless someone wakes up with their power. So this is not even just about anymore. And this is kind of like, some say the show went well. I had a show yesterday. They say the show went well. I feel like it was how long it took me to grasp the ability to present Tetragrammaton as I did in that YouTube video, Tetragrammaton. It was just because it connected so many things, but it also like there was a lot of misconceptions around it. And I had to actually be able to put this conversation together so people walked away from there realizing that once again something had been demonized that was like the hugest level of power and the great mystery, without also seeming like I was somehow affiliated with that and promoting it from the dark distorted level of how it's being presented. It's a bit tough. And then the same thing happened on the show where the person asked me a question, and instead of giving them like the surface answer, I kept being encouraged by my consciousness to just go to the original, that it didn't matter anymore if people actually understood what I was saying. If I just hit the core, the root of who they were, it would speak to them in a different kind of way. So it was a bit of challenge for me because I literally like to feel that when I've said something, people actually comprehend what I'm saying. It's just a part of being a teacher. Or you just kind of stop and try to keep going over that again and drilling into it so they understand it. You're doing this intuitively because nobody is actually saying anything. So the reality is that after we went through what would be like bite-sized 5 minutes of the highest level of knowledge, I realized that this is also coming to an end with teaching people that already are not primed to want to receive this level of knowledge. Because the truth was, in my mind, that if anybody on this call that we're having now was listening to me on this public radio station, they would understand completely what I was talking about. There would have been not a point that they missed. But if the person had not been a part of any of this, especially what we had just went through, this was going to look like only one or two things were going to happen. Either they were going to be entertained by it, and I'm not an entertainer, or they would have been like, this dude is crazy, and I'm not crazy. So either way, I get results that I'm not looking for in my karmic path. You see what I mean? So I would rather just say, boss up, be a master teacher, only teach people who are actually ready to go through this process. But what I'm also getting at here is that there is so much in this process that even trying to act like we can sit down for an hour and explain the whole process to someone without except at least a crutch of some kind of visuals and something else besides just this language and conversation, maybe the healing on hands, you could do it that way. But what I'm saying is to get them fully aware of, do you understand now how to deprogram? This has to be thoroughly thought through, and things have to be created to do that. So I also decided that next week, I'll also have all of the videos ready to upload. I did render everything out and cut everything up, and I just have to actually put it into Kajabi. But next week, what we're going to do is make sure that everyone that is in the tribe now has opportunity to review all the materials that have been brought forth so far. So that also we can take this time, and I can take this time, because early mornings are also very instrumental for me. I always get up early, but I go right into actually doing things related to the network because everything's quiet. And I get more done in that 2 or 3 hours early in the morning for anyone comes around than I'll get all day. And that's just how it works. But because my mornings are now here, it also means that there's a lot of organizational things that I know, because this is what we want to focus on until we master it, that we need to build around this. And I need this time, at least for a week, to be able to build these next tools so we can really climb this ladder. Because if this is speaking that much, and I actually came in one of the days of the week and I say, hey, I guess they want to talk. If you remember that recording. Then I go, yesterday I leave, something's talking, and then just uncovers something that just happened yesterday. So I said, you know what? This is so unique because we're not using our minds to do this. We're using our minds to further dissect it and pull it all apart. But it's actually our spirits that's dialing this in. You hear it in your from the ether. Hey, what is hollow? Huh? What the? Trying to eat some oatmeal. Come on. What is hollow? That shit. And I'm thinking that Halloween, I'm sure that Halloween is about something that we need to know about. Then the resistor comes in right away. No, Halloween's a dark day, Beltane, All Hallows Eve, blah, 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 Saturday, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah, but we already proved that that wasn't actually what it really was. You're right. Keep going. All right. So it looks like, I bet you, and before I even start looking at things, I said, I bet you this has something to do with contact with your ancestors, just intuitively. And then you go look, and it's like, they're not only contact with your ancestors, it will flip a whole story on you. Like, yeah, that whole altar you see set up there, you go Wikipedia article, they got an altar set up there with fresh fruits, all these different amazing things, like pomegranates and bread and all that stuff. But guess what? The dead can't eat. And this will always puzzle me about altars. That should always puzzle me. I'm like, but I'm the kid that's trying to eat a few of the crackers because I'm hungry in church. The little bitty ones, you know what I mean? I'm, drinking a little bit too much of the wine in the back room or the grape juice and getting pinched. I'm that kid, okay? So what happens is I used to always be like, but why? The food's just going to rot? Because in most places, the food is not even allowed to be touched. Some places they say, now we give it to the homeless, they eat it. Some places they say that, now after it's all over with, everybody feast on it. But the original one from the program world was like, you don't touch it. And then it's removed, it's thrown away, new food's brought in. Okay, because it's consecrated to the gods. Backwards. Flipped. This is your stuff. These are your gifts. They're all symbolic. They're supposed to be brought to you. You're on the other side, so you can actually eat this stuff. And the abundance in the fruit and all this stuff is our ancestors who are still doing it. That all the trees are still bearing this fruit and stuff, still giving us something in our format that can actually nourish us and try to bring us into awareness of who we are. So that's all I have to say about this today in relation to what the sun is here to do inside of you. It's now going to penetrate down deep. And all of that was down there that you didn't know about yourself is going to, in a common sense way, become obvious to you that those are your powers, and that someone has taken your temple and destroyed your temple and then buried your temple, just like a dead body will be buried in the dirt. And it is very important for someone, just like in the ancient traditions, where actually the group to observe a time where we take that body out of the casket. Now notice how this is like totally a turn off for everybody. Oh my goodness, oh my god. Well, if you did it right, if you embalmed it in sweet resins and cardamom like they taught you in the necropolis, then this would actually it would have flowers growing from it. As they said, they used to find some of the bodies, they had flowers and weird fruits growing from them. So you were like, and then the story, and that's how they discovered peyote. And you see what I mean? It would be something like that. And that's just saying something just out there right now, but I've definitely witnessed that. It's clear that whatever the cactus is, because I seen the cactus when I was on DMT, that it's actually some kind of like person still, right? Because it was like, yo, come over here. And I was like, no. But serious, it was like, it seemed to be of someone staying there. So of course we know that all these trees and things are still the ancestors. So you see how it's just like, they can penetrate into this space because just how precise they are and how focused they are and how much light they carry. But can we get into that space? Or are we like trying to thread ourselves through the size of a real needle? It's like, I can't get in here. And and then everything, like I said, is backwards. All these fruits on the altar, everybody over here is starving, nobody eating that. They're like, that's for the gods. I'm like, but the gods don't have a belly though. So how is this even working? And as a child, being wise enough to know this after quite a few returns in this. And just also remember, one of the main things that we cracked yesterday was the reason why also you don't remember your past life is because you keep having the same life over and over and over again. And I just want to say that if you understand memory, it's just like trying to copy the same file into the file again. It's like, what are you doing? You just want to rename the file because it's the same file. Yeah, rename it. So you renamed yourself again. Now you're Justice or John or whatever. And here it is. But you're living the same life. So it feels like, well, I don't really remember a past life. Well, because there's nothing to remember because you're actually living in it now. It's the exact same thing. But now what is happening at this point, though, because that memory base is a part of a whole much more broader DNA stream, is you're coming to the awareness of how the darkness falls, how the curtain falls. And I expect to see that in the reality. Like, what is the limit? Well, I'm seeing the limit in Pretty Ricky Mulatto. You just can't take children, because children don't watch that. Here's another one. This is the last one. The Disney series Frozen, okay, was the highest grossing Disney movie of all time. Frozen, the first one. And it's actually a pretty good movie. I did catch it a couple times, see a couple things. It's a good movie because it's a bait to the second movie, okay? And in this second movie, which hasn't come out yet, because we just had, I think, Gay Pride Month or their Pride Month, LGBT Month or whatever, they did an article on what was it? What do they call that? Spoiler alert for Frozen 2. And this spoiler alert, which they've already seen in the scripts and they already have little scripts of it, is that the child, the girl that is the lead character in the role, she's going to come out in the movie and explain to all of the other characters how she likes women. Now, the issue is should kids at all, whatever your sexual gender and preference and all that stuff is when you get of the age of knowing, is on you. But should kids be exposed to making decisions way before they're even like, you're not even giving them an opportunity to even do anything before you're already presenting far too mature decisions as if those decisions are normal. It's like you would affect even the child's overall ability to understand who they are and what they're doing by introducing a decision like that. Okay. Now, to make it simple, this is akin to if we have a 12th grade curriculum and we want to give it to preschoolers, who is the dean of the university? Because this is not going to work. You cannot let someone try to make decisions or know about certain things before it's their time to actually begin to understand and make those decisions. But that's already coming. And will we see it hit the theater? Probably. Will thousands of kids, millions of kids go to watch it? Probably, because most of the parents, I'm sure, didn't read the article. The article was a spoiler alert and only in a small magazine. So nobody knows that this is the big revelation that Cinda, or whatever her name is going to reveal to everybody's children. But this keeps happening. Just like I said, when they walk in on the Shazam flick, Shazam was supposed to be like a kid's cartoon. When the guy got in the room with the demons and he came back to exact vengeance on his father, the scenes that were showed of how these demons were attacking these people and how they were screaming and against the glass and all that, if a child sees that, damn. These are the times that the child remembers all the way to their 30 years old, that scene. And has that stopped yet? Because there's this attitude where people feel like, oh, it's going to stop soon, don't worry. But we were talking about that when they were still in the boxes, meaning we were feeling that it's going to stop soon, when the whole thing was still at almost to a level where we would say now, man, that was virtually innocent to what's happening. So this just means something's happening inside of us. Something is happening where we're waking up. Our sons are waking up inside of us. All of our planetary systems are waking up inside of us, inside of this tribe. Our ancestors are at the door like, nah, you're right. It's not going to pop. It's not going to pop on your guard. This is not going to happen on your guard. Meaning that you're not going to have it a part of your complete memory stream in your DNA that somehow you went through a world. And this, of course, is your father's father, your mother's mother, but that you went through a world that never was completely exonerated from what it had experienced as its sentence through you and through something that you did. That's not going to happen this time. You are going to pull this off. You're going to do this. And how we know that is, again, just to highlight it, the Venus and Saturn thing is obviously really, really, really simple. Okay? For anyone studying the symbolism and watching the evolution, if you had a sound and clear mind, you would see it very simple that, again, your mother and your father have been demonized to be great demons, right? And that's going to affect you. However, what I'm highlighting here is, notice how we've gone 15, 20 years, 30 years as a society. And there's seldom one YouTube video about just this directly. Hey, did you guys ever notice this? And I said, well, why, Seven? Why, when you were studying this, you didn't see this play? What did you tell yourself that made that allowed you to say, oh, that's also, if you can mute that line, please, that would be great. What did you tell yourself to not allow yourself to see the truth about this? And so I went back to that time. There's Lucifer again, Lucifer the bad one. What happened? Because you actually seen all the thing. What would you tell yourself? When I would see, like, let's say the one with the mother there, and then I would see the dark angel, I would tell myself that, oh, this thing knows how to shapeshift. It shapeshifts into any form. Look how dark it is. Look how evil it is. It knows how to even take on. And that was the excuse. Okay? Many people have had that same excuse. It's like, if they see another version of it that doesn't look like the bad one, they'll be like, that thing knows how to transfix itself into an angel of light. And then I said, well, wait a minute, where did all that come from, though? Catholicism. Because in Catholicism, in those books, it says, know too that the angel of darkness will try to transform itself into an angel of light and fool everyone, but don't be. So that's where all that came from. Okay. So what I'm saying is that for anyone to say on YouTube or in the temples or all the priests and the imams, we're not talking about just Seven Bomar. We're talking about pretty much our entire physical structure. That these two forms are what this has been sold to believe they are. That's been happening to us for 30 years. How much more has been happening? 40 years, 50 years, 100 years. How much more has been happening? So it's just an ode to that. These are what spells are. A spell can be put on you in that no matter if you're just looking right at the obvious, yo, that looks like your mother. That you believe that that's a dark angel somehow you won't even give it a good thought, a decent sit down. You'll automatically start judging based on the data that you've been fed. And the only reason why I drill that in so much is because it didn't just happen with our mother and father. There's other stuff that has been done like that, stuff that we haven't even begin to remember or begin to know that we are. But that same tactic, that's why you just need to know the template. And also you need to accept, that's why alcoholism, AA, Alcohol Anonymous, the Illuminati, you need to be able to accept this is the act of being able to break habits, to break spells. You see, and the AA is the knowledge, but repackaged of how to break a spell. And so they tell you the first level of breaking a spell is you have to realize that you're under a spell. You have to acknowledge I'm an alcoholic. Okay? So this is that first part is saying, well, shit, if they pulled the Saturn Venus wool over my eye, and I had gotten so far in occultism and didn't see that, but still felt like not only was I felt like I had a case of weapons that I could not open, because to open them would open up a floodgate of dark, evil creatures and all that. That's what I felt like. Because Venus and Saturn as a pentagram and hexagram, I was like, man, is there anything beyond the pentagram and hexagram? So I'd go try to find all these other symbols and all these other geometries. And then to realize again that this is the cornucopia concave field and the phi base, there was nothing else to find. And then the revelation that when you're looking at a flower and I'm like, Seven, if this is evil, because, a flower has a pentagram right on it, right? And then the whole idea of the pentagram is evil, which was like the beginning of still what is being sold. The star is evil. But then if you're looking at a flower and you're saying this flower is evil, man, you got to come up with a lot more to keep stomaching that. But somehow we do. Now we don't do it anymore. And that is a new day. And now all of the people are still being done to, because remember, now you're sitting in the new day. You're on the other side of things. You're across the bars now. But you're still looking into an entire world that is still behind bars and actually getting more time. Like our children, as we're seeing them in there, what is somehow being still allowed? It's being allowed because we're authorizing it. Like, that's why I'm saying the lawyers and the legal system and all that stuff is very tricky. People who know a lot more about the law, I don't care what the person had done. If they get the right legal genius, if you may, he can get them out. That's what I was saying before. That's why Weinstein is able to rape women and even get paid for it, because the legal structure was set up for him to be able to do that. So we have to understand that anything just in that same kind of connotation, I'm bringing you that because some may feel like they did something so horribly wrong in these past existences. And maybe you did. But in that same constitution and legal structure, it says that you would serve your time. So you would literally have to work with that chakra over a certain period to rebalance, like because you owe. Once you do something, it puts you in debt. Your family could have done, somebody else in the family could have done this. It puts in debt. And now you must spend the time that is necessary to rebalance that space. And then now time's over. But if you're going to allow this structure to keep you inside of the bars of your own consciousness and awareness of who you really are, that should now be your choice. But now, no, of course, some are institutionalized, meaning that they've been in here so long, like they talked about in the Matrix, they've been in here so long that they actually don't want to leave in a tense. They've been in this death body so long, in the death state of consciousness, they don't want to leave that consciousness. So when you tell them, hey, this is what's really going on with the Day of the Dead, if that was your goal and that's what your job was or whatever, you went out to tell them, they're going to be like, so you're saying Halloween is really a good day? So you're saying Satan is really the good guy? So you're saying Lucifer is really our mother? So do you see how that's going to look? Right? So you see why adepts don't talk to neophytes? And there you have it. So that question that you had, well, if there were so powerful beings, then why don't they come and help us? Because what they would be helping you with, you wouldn't even believe it. You wouldn't even believe it. And on top of that, none of this stuff is complicated. It all comes from your parents. If you want to summarize where all your power really is, right there. It all starts at that portal and what is connected to that portal, that ribbon of DNA, all of that, it's there. And so let us go into our meditation. Today we have Today, we're going to practice 20 seasonal breaths. I decided we need to back it down with the breaths because, it's important for us to just understand how to run a complete circuit. Those who've been practicing with the seasonal breath since yesterday, I'm sure can testify that it is somewhat of a task on some of those parts to remember to, like I said, breathe out, breathe in, hold, breathe out, hold. One of those holds, generally the third one, because when you're excelling, you kind of forget to count out. You can always count out in your mind. Here's another thing. I think let's not assume that everybody knows all the stages of meditation. In the beginning, it is always trained in order to be able to focus and actually destroy the monkey mind, which is the thoughts of, this is boring or whatever you're thinking inside your mind. It is better to not just observe your breaths, because that's the second stage, to count your breaths, to actually say, I'm going to take 50 deep breaths or something like this, and then count those breaths as you're having them. And then you'll start noticing you taper off depending upon your magnitude, 12, 13. You already start wandering back off in the mind again. These are the tools that can calibrate you, is to see, can you really stay conscious of counting 50 deep breaths and go through the whole process without somewhere around 23 or even 5 or 7 already forgetting the count. So that's why they say first just count, because it allows your mind, which is always looking for something to do. The mind, you can't imagine, is a master meditator on the first level of meditation. It has to be trained. So that first training is count the breaths. Then the second training, once you find yourself getting to 50 or whatever number you set often, now it's time to stop counting and just observe the breaths, meaning that you actually are just observing that you're taking the breath in and taking the breath out. And then as you move on from there, this is where the 4 seasonal breath would then come in, because now you must start synchronizing and measuring the breaths in equal measures, in this case 4 seasons. So it allows you to, one, when you're taking in the first breath, not take in so much that you're not going to be able to hold that breath for the same distance. And what that is synonymous with is in all this beauty and all this abundance, don't get spoiled, right? This is still about family structure, about children. They get too much, they get spoiled, then they become badasses, then we have to lock them up, okay? So also remember, again, all this stuff that's happening, all the bad shit, is because our parents and our parents' parents started populating and stopped being concerned about every single seed that they were producing. And then some of those seeds fell into other hands. And then we're sad when our children are captured by demons. Do you understand? Like, look at all of the ancient lures. There's always a story of either a princess or someone beautiful or a child getting taken by a demon. And now everybody's got to find where that child is. So what we're talking about is that it is in our lineage that because of all of this pleasure and gifts that we are given, many of us got spoiled and started producing things and didn't care about those things anymore. And they became a problem for us. So we practice taking in what we need. Now, if you have a lot going on, like if you have a lot of people to support, then first of all, putting the responsibility on yourself, you need to increase your breaths, because your breath is your current. So you have to actually expand it's like, okay, so they say the lungs is dragon. Lung in Chinese means dragon, okay? So everybody's riding on this dragon, but we're riding through the air. So this is already difficult to fly with people on your back, okay? So your lungs have to be big, and if you're going to increase your measures. So those people who are looking for wealth, the wealth and abundance in the current movement is in the breath. So people who breathe shallow are always broke. Also, their bodies are broke because their bodies can't get enough oxygen, so they don't work properly. So this is the keys. But remember, you can't just say, okay, I'm going to start breathing deep, because after all, you only have so much capacity at this stage. So you have to work on increasing your capacity. And this is going to take time, and it's going to take that you be serious. So it's almost like important for you to invoke the aspect of your great grandfather the serious one to say, okay, I need to increase my capacity to be able to keep flying all of these people if I'm expecting to get to the next stage. Because some are flying and they got all these people on their back, but they're starting to get winded and they're going lower and lower and lower. And they don't realize this is connected to your breathing. And just like a vortex, because if I saw that person on the astral plane, I would see them going down a vortex. For some reason, they'll never even connect that this is all to do with their breathing, and it'll keep squeezing them tighter and tighter and tighter. I've had times where I started developing lung problems and didn't understand what that was really connected to. It's connected to you getting winded. And now you need to either keep breathing, expanding your lungs and releasing because you're holding on to too much, or you need to drop something off. So let's then imagine that that breath in is that powerful and that wise. That breath in is how much of this do you really need? And now because you're an adept, not a neophyte, you know that, oh, just give it all to me is a big problem, especially when it's time to hold it. And then when you're holding it, what this means is that this is the gratitude. This is the time in which you're observing what you receive. Because the problem with when you're getting too much pleasure is if you're not observing and being grateful for that you're receiving, it just becomes like too much porn or something. This kind of attitude, just over pleasure, over stimulation. You got 15 cars, you got 39 different suns, you got 500,000 fruit trees. Do you think you care about fruit trees? Do you think you care about the sacred act of sex? Do you think that you care about your children or any of that when you have too much of it and you feel like you have so much that you can easily do away with some of it? No. So that is synonymous with why you hold the breath, not immediately breathe out so you can breathe in again. Just more pleasure, hold, gratitude, gratefulness. But now, and this is where a lot of the divine feminine aspect of ourselves utterly fails. It will not let it go. This is the S on top, on the front of mother, smothering, not letting it go. Okay? Because still in that act, if you held that breath indefinitely, what would happen? You would suffocate. But imagine that happens, but because you can't really die, you live on, and you live on in that state where your abundance is being suffocated because you won't let go the last breath that you just took. Okay, so that's what that's symbolic to you. When you're breathing in and you're holding, you're in gratitude, but you gotta let it go. Because notice how people, when you start having gratitude, no, this shit is a slippery slope. As I explained it, at every point you're being tried, because as you give gratitude and now you give honor, kind of like the last thing you want to do is let it go. After all, isn't that what gratitude and honor are for? Only a certain type. What this is about is why in the end of the mandala painting that the Tibetan monks do, that they just go and mess it all up. That's the breath out. Let all that beauty go. Because we can get to this again. Now, on the breath out, on the journey away, this is the one path that has been forgotten. We will take that breath out because now, especially if you held it too long, when you exhale, it's like, right? So that is not an equal measure to how you took it in and how you held it. It ran away. It ran away. It's like once it finally gets free of you, you're going to even have a hard time getting it back. Hence why you didn't want to let it go in the first place. Slippery slope here. One thing leading to another. So these measures are very important. I'm not saying you got to do this overnight, right? It may take time, but our awareness of this is the deepest thing because we're using our body as the greatest arcana, as the highest level of knowledge. We're saying that it's more to the breath than we think. It just looks like something that we can't even see, but yet it causes life and death. And we are to learn how to be familiar with both because we deal on both sides. The realm of so-called living, which I believe based on how stale they are over here, that the world of the dead is probably more crunk because more people are over there for sure than are over here. More people have died than those that are living. That's kind of like simple math. So The party is happening and we're not necessarily there. And the only way to at least get halfway there until we depart from this space is to make sure that we maintain that connection, which is the breathing out, the span of time in which the journey that it takes you down into the underworld, that is the breathing out. Now you've got to make the journey. And now who wants to make that journey, by the way? That's why most people can't remember to breathe out. It's like, and they're already back in again. They're not seeing the span of time in which you breathe out is the journey. And now when you get down there, because if you've taken a long time to breathe out, you're squeezing it all out. Yeah, all y'all leave. It's like, I thought you liked us. We do. You'll be back. Trust me, Mom, you'll be back. Y'all got to go, though. We got to clean all of this up because, this is the temple. So everybody goes. It's like kicking everybody out, right? And this is deep because notice when you remove everything, all the prosperities and all of these external stimuluses, this is the realm of real seriousness and tapping into the depth of yourself and who you truly are. That's why most people feel desperate down there. They're like, I can't breathe. I can't breathe. You see what I mean? And we know all of us have these issues in that underworld realm. Because it's dark, we can't see. I can't see. I can't breathe. We don't know anything about all of that. Know anything about that. We don't really die. How to take down what they call a bladder of air with you. How to basically use it as a part of your own ritual to baptize yourself. To keep yourself always serious and aware. So you're squeezing yourself all the way out. And then also to bring that ram or that light forth. Which is saying, because you notice how when you get to that breath out and you finally master the breathing and you're there and you're sitting there and the breath's out, the brain will send a signal. Hey, we need to breathe. And the sun will say, really? I mean, there'll be a part of your consciousness that'll be like, really? You need to breathe. Because that sounds like something you're dealing with. We're just going to hold the breath real quick, see what's going to happen. So literally something starts playing out because in your consciousness, in your complete being, you really don't feel like you need to breathe. Now, I'm not talking about being ignorant here. If you didn't measure your breaths properly, your body didn't receive enough oxygen for you to be able to pull off this next flighty trip that you're going to go on. That's why this is not after 2 breaths. You're down on the bottom end. As the sun looking at yourself saying you need to breathe, you're more like and you're taking it in, and this is the continuous off balance. So again, just the revelation of the breathing out and the holding brings you down to the realm of the dead. But there's really only joy there, because once you figure out that you don't really need to breathe, then you pass through. Sometimes the body even passes out, but it'll be all right. Like just like a boxer, when he get knocked out, he even got hit, but he gets back up. So when you pass out, it's a mechanism of the body to shut things down so it can take over and then restore things, but it's not dead. So when you do that through breathing and you're not basically suffocating yourself, you're just oxygenated and the signal has gone to the brain to shut off the body, and it shuts off the body, you're still awake. And once it shuts down the body, this is like ultimate relaxation. The body goes down, and it's very easy then for the spirit to actually get right out of the body. And this starts the journey. And that is really the whole purpose of the breathing, is to be able to get the body into a stage of being able to let go of the soul easy. Here's the last thing. Now, all this has to do with breaths, and breath has always been also synonymous with the soul. So that whole idea in the end where we don't want to let go of the breath, as we talked about at the beginning, we don't want to let it go. That's akin to how the body actually feels about the soul. It doesn't want to let the soul go. This is why it's very hard for most people, almost everyone, to get out of the body. Because not only psychologically, not only spiritually, not only mentally, they are so in fear of what is going on, they cannot let go of their soul. And you see this when you're about to take a journey. You will hold on, even something is pushing you out of the body. And now this is even more terrifying. You're like, I don't want to go. What is out there? This is what is synonymous with that. So how do you fix this organically? Meaning, so you don't have to take substances to get out of the body. You need to realize this is directly also connected to that possession. Holding on to something that you should get familiar with and get your whole consciousness, teach your body right, teach your planets the right way, the balanced way. Teach them, man, let go of the soul. Let the soul go. The soul coming back. And then you'll learn how to journey with the soul. You see what I mean? So let's journey with the soul. Let's take our 20 breaths. I'm going to take 1 minute just for those lines to be muted again. Also, moderators, if you could keep muting those lines, you should be hearing them. It's very important. If we need to get somebody else on it, then that's what we do. That's just your responsibility, because it keeps going on the line, and then it just, you can't go back to the recording and clean it up. So it's great to make sure those lines stay muted. We'll take this 1 minute for those who want to go and clear their bladder before we take these 40 breaths. I think I'll do that same thing just so I don't feel like I was on, what was that, the solstice, or yeah, the solstice, when I was like working with unclogging the path, and then I was holding so much, but it seemed to be all relevant too, because I had to really get serious about the discomfort for a moment that you will go through when you're actually clearing a path. This is like when you're cleaning like the toilet and it's already full of crap or whatever, the discomfort of, the smell. That was, somewhat of having to go through a meditation with having to go and do something else, but still power up and make your mind actually be here and focus specifically on what you're doing, even though you have those discomforts. And that's also Vipassana. So let's take this quick moment. Let me just go do this. Okay. So the intentions here are to fully activate the sixth sun of self, which is the sun that is beaming deeply. Now we know the symbolism around this. And this is the sun that is capable of actually shining into dark caves, shining into the places that have been hidden, to let you see that you actually have gifts down there, not monsters, right? Like that's the other thing. This whole thing keeps being sold, and what they say, oh, once you finally get to your depths of yourself, be prepared, because you're going to see those demons and all those deep parts. Actually, that's not actually what's down there. You're dealing with that now. And that's what's making you afraid to go down there, to receive what is yours, what is your allotment, what belongs to you. Your family had everything they earned, everything that they did, all the medals, the seals, and all of the stuff that they gained. That is going to be given to you. Like, what was that parable you had about when you leave?
All you have will eventually be given away. So give now, so that the season belongs to you and not your inheritance.
All that you have, I'm gonna let him say it, just so you can hear it. This one was
Khalil Gibran.
This is Khalil Gibran.
He said, all that you have will eventually be given. So give now, so that the season of giving belongs to you and not your inheritance.
So in short, what this is saying is that when you die, none of the things that actually belong to you are going to be yours anymore. Because because you're going to leave them. So they're going to be given to someone else. So if you make the act of reversing that process now, basically giving the gift that you have already received, then you will be able to cause the opposite effect of what most people experience when they feel like that they're leaving something. It's like, I'm not leaving anything. I already gave it all away. And it's a whole different mode. I can definitely say when I went through that major transformation, that is exactly in essence what I was told, is that I reversed my field. Instead of me continuously going down that same path of getting all the way up and coming back down, I decided, well, I'm just going to give it all away because I'm going to lose it anyway and give it all away. And of course, in the Popol Vuh, that's the same act of them saying, well, if we're going to lose the game anyway, then we might as well go on down to this hellfire then. I don't want to play anymore. And then they went down there, and then that was when the major level up of realizing, well, death can't even hold you. Hellfire can't even burn you. You are life. So we'll take this time. I'm going to take the breath with you. Maybe I'll try to breathe a little bit more louder so that you can hear, but I would like to take the breath, just to participate in this awakening into this grand stage of self. So we can begin now. 10. Listen, balance vibrations tribe, as we've reached midway and crossed over through the portal of self. We've reached the center, the ladder of lights. We've come together as tribe and family, bringing all the consecrated forms into this space. We come in honor and gratitude of all the things that we've learned in this short period, but also something that's been taught to us over lifetimes, us being restored with the awareness of who we are and the gifts that we've been given. As we go forth from here, we're going to continuously expunge the knowledge and the wisdom, reveal the secrets, raise the dead, and actually get ourselves into the stage that we need to be in to get into the guardianship position over our seeds, which are all the children in the world, and all the ideas, the businesses, the things that are commerce, all these things that we start putting our tribe in these positions to bring the world into the joy of this creation and all the things that we have here. That's not just limited to a few people, that everyone receive it. And that those that are in the deep, dark grottos that haven't been seen, that they feel that sparkle of light within their consciousness, which is their family, us, beaming this awareness into them. Let us always go forth as examples. Let us be the reflectors that others use in order to light their own candles. Wholeness. Also, tribe, I wanted to let you know. So, what we're going to do is we're going to take 1 to 2 weeks to one on the 4 seasonal breath. Well, first of all, today, within a few hours, depending on my time frame of taking life to the airport, I'm gonna have all the recordings uploaded, so they're there. Then on the 4 seasonal breath, I'm going to make a recording, and I'm just going to loop it. And what it does is it'll allow you to time out perfectly, because I actually even need that myself to just get the sequence going, because you can see the power within balancing those breaths. And instead of like everybody else thinking breaths consist of just breathing in and breathing out, which actually gives them only 2 seasons, that you understand how to shift your breathing into a 4 seasonal breath. Because if you would make that great of a change inside of your your respiratory system, then you would more than likely activate into a complete being. It is a really extreme awareness around, and others know that the breathing out is important and the holding is important, but we're still actually seeing these breaths as just breathing in, breathing out, and we're counting one. And like, oh, breathe in, breathe out, one, breathe in, breathe out, two, when it's really breathe in, hold, breathe out, hold, one. And that four seasonal breath, let's see what that does. But I don't want to, make any claims of fame because this is already in stardom. But I'm sure that we're going to find that that's going to activate the consciousness into the stage in which we wish to receive, giving us another light in the quadrant where there's been darkness. So I'm sure that that makes sense. And I'm sure you see also the purpose of all of this. Like, wow, what a design, to put as beings us through all these different things. Like, wow, there's a lot of intentions and a lot of responsibilities and a lot of things being conducted here to get us into these stages. So we give thanks. And yeah, that's what we have for today. It's Sunday. So let us go out as a synthesis in this space and shine this light to as many people as we know are ready to receive it. Those other resonators that are a part of who we are, which is everything. And that's why if we're just being us and we're just on our own stuff, I said, man, he's on his own thing. That is all that's really required. That's being real. So there it is, drive, wholeness.